There it is. The big red button's been pushed. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Natives in America podcast on the Reservation Radio Network. And with you, as always, right now is Benjamin Juan. I'm your host. And my buddy here and co-host, Skyanto.
Yo, yo, yo. Oh, man. Just trying that out. I guess not.
Try it again.
What's up?
There it is.
How we doing?
He's here, guys. He's here.
Scratch the yo, yo,
yo. yo.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. It's article time. We're doing it again. And this time I'm finally bringing a little something to the table here. I always wonder, when we're doing these, like, all right, is it time? Like, when's a good time to cover a subject? Like, sometimes we lean heavy in the dark stuff, and then sometimes we go a little light and humorous, and it's funny, and we talk about movies. I really enjoy those, but at the same time, I'm a scientist, and I don't consider you a scientist, Sky, but I do consider you a man of interests, a man that follows, you've been trained just like I have to examine your ignorance and then turn it into a positive. Do you consider yourself a scientist? Like, I consider myself a scientist, like, through and through.
I think it's like not at the bottom of the list of what you can label what I do. That term generally describes me partially.
You strike me as a heart man. You live by the heart.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I mean, I like to examine things.
Yeah.
I like to question things.
Scientist.
But, I guess the formalness of it, where there's all these different categories and different classifications and, a lot of different terminology. I think all of the generalness of it, where it gets, or the technicalness of it, where it's, I'm lost. So, maybe I'm not such a great scientist. I'm just a lost one.
Well, there are many fields in science, and I'm sure you could find yourself in one of them.
Oh yeah,
I think so. I think I like research. I like the cutting edge stuff, and basically that's what this article kind of brought forward for me. Again, I'm always searching titles, headlines, and I'm looking for stuff to just dig into. Not necessarily for this podcast, but just for my own personal enjoyment. Like this article here, and there are several that I'm going to try to mention here, but there's one that I'm sticking with for the quotes here. But I mean, all right, I'll give you a title, and we'll go from there, because I don't want to go too heavy too early here. So for anybody who wants to follow along or wants to look into this themselves, it first popped up on Google the end of last month. It was like November 28th. And what the title said was, First Living Robots Learn to Reproduce, I think is what it was called. Now, from that article, I started finding out, I started kind of looking through all the links that were within the article, and I found out that this actual scientific breakthrough happened a year ago. So it was in 2020. It was actually January 31st, 2020, so it was early 2020. And when that article first came out, it says, Team builds the first living robots. So if you're trying to find the one that I'm going to talk about mostly, you're going to look up They call it the University of Vermont, but you can look up UVM today and then look up First Living Robots. And what you'll find is the article, Team Builds the First Living Robots. All right, and just for credit purposes, I'm going to name the author, Joshua E. Brown. So this is not the actual scientific article, but this is the article that somebody wrote about the release, the scientific release, the scientific announcement. Okay? Now, I sent it to Sky, and you had some hang-ups, you said? Or should I continue on with my introduction here, and then we'll come back to that? What do you think?
I think...
Talk to me, Broham.
I mean, about the article, or...
Yeah.
That's pretty... I mean, like I said, like, I don't really know a lot of the technical things, but I do know all living things are made of cells. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And somehow, I mean, so I guess I was always like kind of interested in, well, not so much interested, but interested, I guess, but like, and maybe going too far, or not.
Who's going too far? You or science?
Science.
Uh-huh.
Or we're humanity, I guess, or we're going past realms we're not supposed to be going because it's maybe something we don't want to, like opening up a can of worms, in a way, because these cells that were, modified and created, we're kind of moving on their own, thinking on their own, or however you think cells work. These cells were like, I don't know, it's like the thing that they're building, was that something pre-planned, or was that something like just, it's new to the whole beginning of time? Like where it's like this has never been done before.
This has never existed, what they've done here. So the old saying, you're playing God, that's kind of what's going on here.
Exactly. So there's this part of me where I'm like, what are these cells? I don't know. But then I started thinking about the Ninja Turtles. I can't remember what happened to, something happened to the Ninja Turtles, and they became...
Ooze.
Yeah, the ooze, but like, who's to say this ooze doesn't form something already living, or like what we were saying before, taking on the body of something else. But I think one thing to also to take away, and maybe if somebody doesn't read the article or look into what we're talking about, but like we have this idea of a robot like C3PO, what is it? C3PO, or like Johnny 5, or like
one of my favorite robots.
You think of these bots as metal beings, very, very robotronic. Like there's a generic image we have when we hear that term, robots.
Yeah.
And the robots that they're talking about in this article are almost like they're not going to form the robots we imagine. They're going to become something else, and I don't know what that could be. It could be anything. So that's what I'm saying. Where would it be better if we just never fuck with that and just do it wrong?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, science has always pushed it. I guess that's what it's for, right? I mean, to wander and to kind of be excited about, what else is possible. So,
yeah,
there's a conflict of, like, this moral, maybe spiritual connection to what's right and wrong, and, like you said, playing God and going to where there's no turning back,
yeah.
Now robots are damn, what if zombies are really robots? Like, what if we just become zombies, because they said, like, this is something we could just swallow. Like, these cells, they're so small.
Mm-hmm.
How they start off, and that's what I was thinking, like so small for consumption, like where you won't even know.
Yeah.
It got you. But I heard this crazy story the other day about when they shot the movie Titanic, and somebody or they think somebody might have put some hallucinogenics in the food during one of their movie parties. And everybody just started tripping in the boat. And it was chaos. Like, people started tearing their clothes off.
Yes.
It was madness. And the guy made himself throw up to try to sober himself, but he called the cops, and there's something's going on, and they think it was somebody that when they ate, whatever they did, got everybody this. So as I heard that story, I'm thinking about this. And
okay. Where the hell are you going with this, guy? Okay, yeah, all right.
Like in every freaking story where I even think of the killer bees or the African bees that, somebody in South America just left one of the things open and they got out, and now they're in North America because they migrated all the way. And so it's one mistake can just cause all this chaos. So
yeah, they're saying that's kind of how this virus that we're all dealing with is started, COVID. They're kind of saying that's kind of what happened here. So yeah.
I don't know about that, but yeah. I'm just saying, you got these scientists playing with some robot fungus, just, I don't know, just to say, and then you got, young college kids trying to change. I don't know. Again, we're something that, I guess the positives. What are the positives of this?
Well, we'll get to that. There's seems to be a lot, is what they're claiming. But again, it comes down to who makes the decision to take that final step that you're talking about. You're talking about somebody making this final mistake of releasing it, and then everybody's got to deal with the consequences. And that's historically a story that's been told again and again and again. Even in some of our favorite movies, it starts that way. Like Jurassic Park, it's they were fucking with something that, out of their league, and it turns around and bites them literally in the ass. So, yeah. 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 I understand your concerns here. I will say I definitely share them.
Huh.
So I'm gonna go a little more on an intro here.
Okay.
What I love about this article is it has like a lot of the elements that we talk about all into one kind of tiny package. It's we've got stem cells, we've got AI, so artificial intelligence, there's supercomputers, we've got robots, we've got cells, there's replication, and then DARPA's involved, and then we got the first, like quite a few firsts, like stuff that's never been seen before this. So that's why I loved this article, and I was really hoping that we could have this great conversation about all this, and we're gonna go through it here. But yeah, the what hangs heavy in the back of my mind is exactly what you've brought up here, is this fear of the consequences. But we'll get to that. Let's start at the beginning here. So, first of all, the title is Team Builds the First Living Robots. Now, like you said, we have this image in our heads of a robot, and then we look at this image and it's like, what the hell is this? That's not the robots I'm used to seeing. So you brought up, C-3PO, Johnny 5. That's a straight up robot. And then when we start talking about AI and robots using AI, we start looking at I can't think of the names of those damn robots. I'm gonna have to look it up right now. Anyway, we have these robots out there in the world that have skin. We think of cyborgs, we think of Terminator. And so there's that. We think of a robot like I'm trying to think of something that is more along the lines of what we would think when we say living robot. I'm thinking Arnold Schwarzenegger, skin over this metal frame.
Oh yeah.
Like that's what I think when I hear living robots, right? And then when we go through this article, the very first image is this. It looks like a meatball. It just looks like some meat has been smashed together. And what's crazy is right? Like it just looks like a meatball. And what it is something around 3,000 cells that have been put together by these scientists and then observed. So their whole thinking is, can we make something? Can we use stem cells? So stem cells, if you're not already on the page with us here, stem cells are like free-flowing cells that have not been identified yet. They haven't been given a job yet. So that's why the whole research on stem cells is so incredible, because what they're doing is they're taking cells that haven't been identified yet and they're putting it in a place that needs repair. So throwing stems, what happens is a stem cell has no identification, and then you put it with other cells, like say heart cells, brain cells, liver cells, skin cells, and what happens is the stem cell will take on that role and become that type of cell. Alright? You with me? Are you with me? Where are you, Sky? You're slamming coffee right now, aren't you? So these guys took stem cells, and I guess they started wondering, can we get these to become something else? Can we make something microscopic that is biodegradable and get it to do simple jobs? All right, that was the basis of their entire research. Was, I guess, all science. You pose a question, can we do this? And then you start testing and see if you can. And these guys decided to start with stem cells. And to be more specific, they used African clawed frog embryos, and they're saying it's a Xenopus laevis is the scientific name for this specific frog. They took the baby embryo cells, scraped them, and got stem cells off of these cells, and then they started deciding, using a supercomputer and AI, to try and figure out a mass of, like a shape and a mass of cells that would function, that would start doing something. They were wondering what they could do with it. And what's cool is they used frog skin cells and then mixed it with heart muscle cells. And I'm guessing it's frog heart muscle cells, so that they would already work together. They didn't really go into that part, but they got the skin cells from the embryo of these frogs. And what they did was they put them in a petri dish and let them start to develop. And through their research, they started using computers to give them ideal shapes that could create motion in a liquid or a fluid. All right? And so what they did was they got this guy, he was like a microscopic surgeon. And what he did was he went and started, they gave him a picture that the supercomputer gave him. Like, this is the model, and then this specialized doctor came along and started putting the cells together, like building blocks, and they built these shapes that the supercomputer said, hey, these will do specific tasks. They gave the computer model and constraints, and they said this is what we wanted to do, and then this AI / supercomputer popped out this answer. They said, shape them like this, and this thing will move. All right? You still with me?
Yeah.
What do you think about all this so far?
The frog, I'm assuming there's something about the frog that makes it easier to tap into that.
I wondered, like, why the frog? Like my first impression is there's like really hardcore red tape around human testing, I guess. Testing on humans, even if it's cellular.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing they wanted to start somewhere fresh. Somewhere a little safer. But I don't, I read about three of these articles in part of the scientific journal that they did, the report, and none of them really define why frog cells. And what's kind of funny is the whole disaster on Jurassic Park was using DNA from frogs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it all went wrong. Like, they started reproducing in the wild because they turned asexual, like certain frogs can. I wonder if that's what they were going for.
Well, I always thought it was like start from the bottom, then.
Oh, you mean like on evolution?
No, I mean like start with. Well, that's one way to see it, but like, start with the frog, then maybe move on to the rabbit.
Yeah.
And the monkey.
That's generally how they do it. I'm curious if they're like on the molecular level like this and cellular level. I wonder how different a frog's stem cells are from a human's.
Wait,
like if we put human stem cells alongside frog stem cells, would they be the same?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but like I'll have to contemplate that along my way here, along my scientific journey.
Something about manipulating the cells or the embryo, whatever. Maybe it's easier to do with the frogs. Maybe. Yeah, they were scraping these stem cells off of the embryo, and then they basically cleaned them up and then let them develop and become,
become themselves, basically. What I found interesting is what they started doing was they make these shapes and group them, and after about 5 days, they start moving on their own. So, anyway, before we go to that, we were talking about robot. And what this doctor explained, so one of the main guys that I'm probably going to quote a lot, he's a Joshua too, not just like the author, but his last name is, I want to say, Bongard. Alright? So, what this guy was saying, here we go. Hold on. So anyway, what they were saying was that they were using the simplest definition of robotics, and that's a autonomous object, or, you know, in the robots we think about, it's a machine made of metal and ceramic, whatever. It's a machine that we program or tell it to do something, and then it goes and does a job for us.
Yeah.
And in that strictest definition, they took cells and they said, all right, well, if we take these cells that are autonomous, they're actually alive, and we shape them, then they're saying that the way they shape them is basically how they're programming them. So if they want it to move forward, they got to shape it in a way that it moves forward. If they want it to carry medicine, which is another thing that comes up later, they got to shape it a certain way to be able to carry medicine. And so what they're saying is they created this thing, these cells, living, it's alive, and they make it perform a task on our behalf. All right? So they're saying that they're using the strictest definition of a robot, and that's how they're able to call this the first living robot, because it's a cell. It's alive. And what they wound up doing was grouping them together, and then they let them grow. And they say after about 5 days, these cells turn into about 3,000 cells. So they make a shape, put it in this, I guess, a petri dish, and then they let it start growing, and it starts growing more stem cells, or maybe skin cells, I guess is what it becomes. And then after 5 days, there's about 3,000 cells, and they start to do shit. They just start moving around and living as if it's a multicellular organism, which blows my freaking mind. I can't remember when it said it did it, but they started growing what's called ciliae. And that, like, when people start thinking of cells, like, if you guys remember your old science days or biology days, ciliae are like the little hairs on the ends of the cells, and they basically whip around like tails, and they create motion for the cell, so a cell can move, like, in and out of blood. And it's usually done with ciliae. So what they're saying is, so these bundles of cells grow those little hairs, and they start moving. All right?
Yeah.
Now, so everybody remembers that, and that's kind of how this motion begins. But, like, if you look at that first image I showed you at the top of this thing, it's moving, or maybe it's in the middle of the article. It looks like a meatball, and it's just kind of shuffling along. That's pumping heart cells. So, like I said, it's part skin, part heart, and this cell is moving. This meatball is moving because it's pumping. Mm-hmm. They say in the beginning it just looks like a separate little cell, but once you group them together, they start pumping like a heart, which is crazy. But anyway, so there's hairs, and then there's this pumping motion, and the pumping motion is what basically gets this little chunk to start moving. Blows my mind. And what's cool is these things are incredibly tiny. They're like they say it's like a fraction of a millimeter. And that's also why you're saying, oh, somebody, you know, what do you call it? Roofie the dinner party on the Titanic.
Yeah.
These are so small you'd probably only see them with with a microscope.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, they're saying that could lead to them being able to be ingested or injected into our bodies, and someday be so well programmed that they can perform tasks for us inside our bodies. Which, you know, that's a red flag right there for me. It starts popping up like, you're going to put this frog hamburger meatball in my body? I'm not sure. And there'll probably be thousands of them, right? They're probably not going to just do one to perform a task. They'll probably form a whole bunch of different ones and then inject them into us, and supposedly they'll go around doing their job. What do you think about that?
It's like this a robot knowing he's a robot. Or it's weird because it's like the way you're describing it and the way it looks, it's like, you know, this thing that's kind of creating itself. Like if you just let it create itself, again, like, we don't know what it's going to look like or form, but it just seems like a bunch of baby robots forming a big robot.
Well, this whole reproduction thing, that's the first article I sent you. It's when this stuff popped up on my radar. I think the title was something like "Living Robots Learn to Replicate." Now, what's funny is when I found this earlier article, they're saying, "Oh, these can't replicate, so we're safe." That's kind of how they said it. They're like, "Oh, anybody who's worried about this thing replicating itself, do not fear, they can't do that." And then the article we're reading in the beginning that came out last month, it's like, hey, they can replicate. It's like, shit, it's only been a year, maybe a year and a half, maybe a little more than that, but another red flag, people. Now, another thing that kind of, if we're talking red flags here, DARPA is involved.
That was one thing that stood out as well, as far as now, like the study, the funding come before or after? You know?
I believe what happened was
it's that partially so.
Yeah, well, the supporters that I read about was DARPA and their Lifelong Learning Machines program and the National Science Foundation. All right. Now, for people who aren't already on DARPA's radar, like I've been on them for years because they make some of the coolest shit I've ever seen. Like the real robots that are, getting closer and closer to the Terminator are being developed by these guys. Now, DARPA is also responsible for the internet. Like they're responsible for GPS. Like they're deep in the weeds. Like what I always found cool about science, and that it was brought up about space travel, is it's always good to let a country and a military flip the bill for research because they have a lot more funding, they got more experience, and they got more people to basically die or put themselves in the position of danger to test these things. And they were saying that it was better to let NASA do it first versus the new guys coming along and advancing it. So all these breakthroughs that we're used to using and taking advantage of, they got a list here. DARPA. So anybody who doesn't know about DARPA, you want to look it up. It's the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. All right. Now it says they're responsible for weather satellites, GPS, drones, stealth technology, voice interfaces, personal computers, the internet, and it just goes on and on. There's like, I don't know if you've seen I want to say the 4th Terminator movie. It's the one where they changed the guy. It was the Batman guy. they had snakes. They had these like robotic snakes that were swimming in the water and like jumping out and attacking these guys. DARPA has that snake. They've already made it. Like, it's real. Maybe not so much attack mode with a biting mouth, but they got a snake that swims in water. So if anybody's interested, if you're into robots or you know, scary shit, I recommend checking out DARPA. Just spell out DARPA and look on YouTube and a ton of videos. Like, these guys are also responsible for the dog robot, and I'm not sure if it was them that did it or maybe like a private company, but somebody did it first, and I really thought it'd be them. They put a machine gun on top of the robotic dog. So we have robot dogs with machine guns now. Thank you, DARPA. Thank you, every other science group out there. That's what we have. Now, an even scarier shit that I found out by these guys, they made, what did they call it? It was a biomass-fueled robot. And they said it was for the battlefield, but they didn't really go into deep details. But what they were basically saying is they designed a robot that got its fuel from biomaterial, which basically means it eats flesh. Can you imagine that? Like, of all the warning movies out there, and they just said, oh, let's do that. Now, they didn't go too far into the details of that, but in my mind, and they said it was for the battlefield, in my mind was they were going to create these robots to clean up dead bodies off of a battlefield. How freaking awful! That's just me saying that, but why else would they do that? You know? Like, why would they do that? Why would they do that? So what I'm saying is we got this really cool, you know, science breakthrough that's happening, and at the same time it's being funded by DARPA. I guess is the point I'm making. Like, these people who I say they're on the cutting edge of science and robotics and all kinds of other, like, different levels of science, but they are also scary. They're funded by the government and basically the Department of Defense. Alright, so our Department of Defense. And what's funny is I was going down this like little list on the side here of it's like a quick information thing, and one of the parts said an annual budget, and I was like, oh, I wonder how much. And I saw 3,427, and I thought, wow, that's really not that much. And then I kept reading, and it was $3.427 billion a year. So that's how much money our government is spending on these guys. So, like, if you guys know the F-22 Raptor, they build that. Like, they have a big hand in that stealth, super advanced fighter jet.
Damn.
All right. So as far as scary warning goes, DARPA's involved here, people. And then when I mentioned the National Science Foundation, that sounds on the up and up, right? Well, check it out. They were made about the same time, like maybe a little bit before DARPA, and their whole point is, I'm quoting here, Wikipedia, I think, to promote the progress of science, to advance the national health, prosperity, and welfare. And then the very last tidbit is to secure the national defense. And then it goes ... So there's probably more to that, but I just heard national defense, and I was like, okay.
It's almost like we're going to use science to protect this.
Well, they are also saying our advanced national health and prosperity and welfare.
Oh, yeah.
They say that first, so, you know, right away, we shouldn't worry about. Well, of
course, you say the positive stuff first, and then you throw in the, you know, and we're
doing a little defense, too.
And we're kicking some ass.
Yeah, we dabble in a little defense on the side here. It's mostly about health.
Attaching machine guns to horses.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that kind of sets a stage here right off the bat, like.
Well, oh wait, no, but you said that was the Science Foundation?
Yeah,
Is that what they're called?
That was the National Science Foundation. They're the ones that are doing, we're promoting health and the progress of science. And off to the side it says, and national defense.
Yeah.
Here, maybe I can read more into that and give you the rest of that sentence. No, I don't see it. Okay, so where's your mind at right now? Because I think I drone on a little long, and it gets a little heavy for the listeners to keep going.
So, where my mind is, I mean, I'm trying to weigh the positives and the negatives.
Yeah.
I mean, this could be something that, changes, how the world functions, And something that can expand the longevity of man. I don't know. It's like, I don't know, we always talk about this, maybe not let down or a disappointment of what we thought we would be doing when we were younger, talking about the future, and of course, like floating cars, and I mean, those things exist, but they're like almost at the baby step.
Yeah.
And, this could be something where, I don't know, like, we're just able to create things, and, and robots are, they're really going to be among us, like kind of like how we've been saying, but again, it's like that concept of a robot is almost got to wipe it off the brain and redefine it, because
well, that's what I love about this article. It's like already right off the bat I had to redefine for myself what a robot is. That's fantastic. I love that.
But then what are the negatives of it?
It might be turned into a weapon before it saves our health. Again, we bring capitalism up a lot, but that's what happens with capitalism. Like there's plenty of people that go, capitalism also leads to innovation. People are competing to, make the best thing. But what happens is we fund the winner. They pick a winner and then they fund them, and that's just where it goes. Like, there's all these high hopes, like, we're promoting the progress of science, we're improving national health. But what happens, like with the pharmaceutical companies, they find something and then they sell it to us. They don't solve the problem. They're not that winds up not being the goal, because it's more profitable to create something that keeps us alive but doesn't solve the actual problem. Keeps you alive longer so you can buy more pills and give them a better profitable year the next year. They're like, we got away with it this time. Let's see how much farther we can take it. And when I see DARPA and national defense tied in with this incredible scientific breakthrough, I can see them saying, it's going to solve contamination, it's going to solve, regeneration, it's going to give us delivery of a new delivery vehicle for medication. And all I'm thinking is, all right, what's DARPA going to do with it then? What are they going to add? What are they going to change here? It'll be the new virus or delivery system for a virus, something you can't see. Like it's Another red flag. Can we just keep a tally here and just go, oh, that's another red flag there?
I mean, I remember that article. It was a long time ago where they were doing they were using rats to grow an ear, or someone's nose.
Yeah. What came of that?
I mean, I think they were able to successfully transplant that. They were able to dissect it from the rat and then attach it onto where it was supposed to go. I mean,
a human subject, right? It went from a rat.
The correct terminology again to say that, but that was one way where science was, doing something. So I guess it's think of that with these robot cells. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what we think a robot is capable of producing, and what does that look like, and why do we need something to produce? I guess what would be the most important thing we would want a robot to build for us, or what is going to be I guess on the priority list of benefits, what is the thing that's going to benefit everybody as far as what these robot things are going to provide. But when we're talking about all these things that are funding it and kind of setting their boundaries and red tape and their expectations of what they're going to do with what they find out, the information, but it's just is it going to be something where you got to pay extra for that? It's not. I don't know. You kind of wonder about these science lovers, why do you love science so much, or why are you putting so much money into this? What is it really the love of science, or is there something ulterior motive? Or
I think a lot of the big money givers like DARPA would be in hopes of their next weapon. Or again, capitalism, their profit. What's going to lead to a bigger profit down the road? That's kind of how I see it winding up. They're investing to get something out of it, right? Are you still there? Did you hang up?
Nah, I mean that's what I mean. It's almost like you wonder if they had something in mind before even throwing down the cash.
Oh yeah. Ulterior motives. Ulterior?
I don't know. I was saying alternative motives.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Wait a minute.
I don't know. I mean, is DARPA for just the country, or is DARPA for the world?
Well, all right. So DARPA started a lifelong learning machines program. All right. Now I'm gonna bring up a definition on that. The program seeks to develop systems that can learn continuously during execution and become increasingly expert while performing tasks. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that just screams AI to me. All right? But it's also their robots that they're funding with Boston Dynamics. People, that's another one, Boston Dynamics. Look them up, too, because they're key to all these Terminator-type robots that are coming out. Okay? So, wait a minute. Well, all right, so what were you talking about? I feel like I'm cutting you off left and right here.
Nah, you're not. I was just saying,
Oh.
I don't know what I'm saying. I mean, it's just... I guess what's the reason for this to come about? Like, was there a cause? Was there inspiration to why we're now suddenly wanting to see what we can get out of this, or are we just
so
for shits and gigs?
I feel like the whole lifelong learning machines program kind of narrows down what they were hoping for. DARPA. Yeah. I mean that's kind of a lot. That's kind of in line with the definition of robots. It's an object or a thing that does a job on somebody else's behalf. So it executes a job or completes tasks as told to do by somebody else. So like programming, we program a robot to do something. They're building these cellular organisms to perform tasks, and they're just hoping that it all works out in the end. So it's crazy. Like what it is something that's never existed before. They've taken these cells, and they're stem cells. So again, it's a cell that hasn't really taken an identity. It's a cell that isn't fully formed. It's a cell that can become anything, which is why stem cells are so important. Like why they heal so well is because if you, like, say you have a damaged heart or a heart attack, and this section of your heart has all these dead cells in them. The idea of these guys pumping stem cells in there, or however they deliver it, it goes in there and starts reproducing cardiac cells, so heart cells. And they can potentially replace or improve the areas that have been damaged in your heart. Alright? So these guys, these scientists, like obviously the work was probably started already. Like even if they were the ones who started it, it's when their funding came in that they took it a step further. So I'm sure in order to get this funding from DARPA and the National Science Foundation, they had to compete. They had to already have research in hand to say, hey, this is what we're working on. Will you fund us? And they got it. They got it. And what they've come up with this thing that's never existed before, which for me is freaking exciting. It's like, holy crap. I mean, I tend to go big picture, both sides, and yeah, there's a ton of red flags. This is total potential for Terminator style stuff, some real Jurassic Park crap.
Yeah. Like, have you ever seen like this and ending in a good fight versus like this where we have a lot of negative outcomes to kind of reference? Like, can you think of anything where we're pushing the boundaries and hey, we came out cool on the other end? Like, it always seems to just blow up in our face. As far as like that tapping into something we shouldn't be tapping in and bringing back the dinosaur when we can't handle the dinosaur, you know?
Yeah. You guys have a T-Rex? Yes, we have a T-Rex. Yeah. You guys bred raptors? What species is this? Oh, that's a velociraptor. You guys bred velociraptors? Yeah. Sorry, movie buff. Yeah, well, I told you to check out Transcendence, and I told you it was a pretty recent movie, but I'm looking at it right now, and it's 2014. So
it's pretty recent.
Yeah, it is, but 7 years ago. So, if people who are listening have not seen this movie, it's with Johnny Depp, for all those movie lovers. I think it's Julianne Moore. No, it's like Cape Mara, I think it was. I'm looking at it, I'm not even reading it. Okay, anyway, transcendence. It's basically it's true research going on right now, where these guys map this guy's brain. They basically upload him into a computer, and from there he becomes basically a sentient being. He's modeled after this guy's mind, but it becomes something greater and much more advanced. And what's crazy is he starts solving all these problems that we have, like just solving the fuck out of them. And years go by and they just get better and better, but these people are like, wait a minute, this is the end of humanity. And then there's conflict, and then like all our scary sci-fi movies, it gets out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to ruin it for everybody, but a part of it is about nanites. And that's kind of where my mind goes with these bots, these robots. Now, I don't think we've even mentioned it yet, but they're calling them Xenobots. Now, before I knew why they named it that, I was like, that's fantastic. Like, if you think of a xenomorph or aliens, that's kind of what they call them. Is a xeno something. Like, on aliens, that's what the aliens are being called. They're xenomorphs or something like that. It's basically tapping into something completely foreign and new in the DNA spectrum. It's a xeno something like. I'm ripping out Google tonight.
Huh.
Xenomorph.
I wonder what it.
What?
Why it is that Xeno, or the X and the Y.
So, yeah. Well, alright, so Xeno is Greek for strange, and morph is Greek for form.
Okay.
So xenomorph is what they were calling the aliens on Aliens. Alright? But like they called this a Xenobot, and I was like, that's fucking fresh, that's the shit. And then turns out the name of the frog is Xenopus. So they just call it a Xenobot based off of the frog. But I like the idea because it was something that's never existed before. You know? And that's exactly what it is. This line they say in this article, this guy's like, it's 100% frog cells, but this is not a frog. You know what I'm saying? He says, you look at the cells we've been building. You look at the cells we've been building our Xenobots with, and genomically, they're frogs. It's 100% frog DNA, but these are not frogs. Then you ask, well, what else are these cells capable of building? So that was kind of like the start. And that's a quote. That's a quote from the doctor, I believe. Oh no, that was Michael Levin. I haven't brought him up yet. I don't think I will. You guys can read the article. Very informative, kind of scary, and really exciting for me. Like, very cool. Xenobots. Anyway, where was I? What were we talking about here? So basically they created this new form, super tiny, and then they say, well, this is going to be creating... Well, hold on. In this article, they actually touch on what we're talking about. So I'm just going to read like this paragraph, and it might touch on what we're talking about here. So I'm going to read from the article. The headline of this section is called Future Shocks. And it says, many people worry about the implications of rapid technological change and complex biological manipulations. And it says, that fear is not unreasonable, Levin says. When we start to mess around with the complex systems that we don't understand, we're going to get unintended consequences. A lot of complex systems, like an ant colony, begin with a simple unit, an ant. from which it would be impossible to predict the shape of their colony or how they can build bridges over water with their interlinked bodies. Then he goes on to say, if humanity is going to survive into the future, we need to better understand how complex properties somehow emerge from simple rules. Alright? Does that all sound right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to read this next part. So much of science is focused on controlling the low-level rules. We also need to understand the high-level rules, he says. If you wanted an anthill with 2 chimneys instead of 1, how do you modify the ants? We'd have no idea. I think it's an absolute necessity for society going forward to get a better handle on systems where the outcome is very complex, Levin says. A first step towards doing that is to explore how do living systems decide what an overall behavior should be, and how do we manipulate the pieces to get the behavior we want. And then it says, in other words, this study is a direct contribution to getting a handle on what people are afraid of, which is unintended consequences. Levin says whether the rapid arrival of self-driving cars, changing gene drives to wipe out whole lineages of viruses, or the many other complex and autonomous systems that will increasingly shape the human experience. So there's all of this innate creativity in life. We want to understand that more deeply and how we can direct and push them towards new forms. Whew. That sounds like a crazy scientist, man, trying to, I think it's this article, I'm not sure if it's this one. I've read about 3 of them now, but they were saying that this is like Frankenstein-like.
Mm-hmm.
They took all these cells and just slapped them together and said, hey, let's see what happens.
Let's see what we get.
Yeah. Now, what's funny is, again, I don't think it's this one, because this one was a little more direct, but one of the other ones, they were saying if we don't got to worry about this getting out because we have it in a controlled environment. And I fucking laughed my ass off. I was like, all right, guys, you just said the famous last words on every scary horror movie I've ever seen. They're like, oh, it can't get out. We have secondary things in place. There's safety backups. It's perfectly safe and normal. Jesus,
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like, is this just a repeated tale of all the other ones, or just creating something that's going to be our demise?
Yeah.
Or a consequence we don't want. But then again, like, sometimes consequences do teach you things. Maybe we gotta just learn from that. But again, like, you kind of just let this thing grow. And I don't mean it itself, but just the possibilities of, incorporating it into like medical stuff, or I don't know, somehow engineering it to power, I don't know, electronics. I don't know. I was like, it's kind of infinite on how you can think it can help, but yeah, it's just kind of made up because we're tapping into something where we don't know what we're really messing with. We're just But yeah, we're sort of at the beginning of it all, really, because we're new territory. Yeah,
this is definitely, like you said before, like, this is the baby step. Like, almost the entire article, almost every person who talks about it says, oh, well, the potential. And again, those are the key scary words of every horror film as well. It's like, oh, we did this because of the the incredible potential of the upside, you know? Like, was it Planet of the Apes? Where he was trying to eradicate Alzheimer's, and then what he wound up creating was super intelligent monkeys, or chimpanzees, I guess. They weren't monkeys or apes. And then the apes fucked us up and took over, right? So it's like, oh, whoops. They're all in cages. They're safe. Oh, good. We got backups.
Yeah.
We're safe. It's fine. Unless, one gets out and kind of coughs some blood in your face, and now you're the beginning of the scourge.
You ever heard about that movie they made in Aho? Called
what was it called?
It starts with the L.
Fuck, I can't. I don't know. I should know. I lived out there for a good.
But you know what I'm talking about?
I can't see it in my head. I know somebody made a movie out there, but I don't think I've seen it. I can look it up.
No, I'm looking it up right now.
Okay.
But in the film, they got these rabbits that are just kind of... I don't know if they're doing tests on them or they're trying shit on them, but there's a kid in there. Again, the young one in the film doesn't properly close the gate or the cage, and it gets out, and it goes out and starts populating, and these rabbits take over the town. Damn, what was it called? I should have known.
Night of the Laevis.
Why did I forget that? Night of the Laevis, yes. And I mean, it's not Planet of the Apes, but it's...
Oh my God, I gotta see this now.
I mean, can you imagine... I don't know what it would be, just... Well, I remember what you said when you were describing this to me on the text message. You said Pac-Man. This Pac-Man looking thing, and I just imagine this just rubbery cartilage, glowing,
just chomping on shit,
just chasing you,
Fuck that, man! They're so small, they'll be eating you on the inside. You won't even know it. Jesus.
And then it breaks off and it just gets bigger. The thing crazy about the article is like, this shit just reproduces. Like, there's not like, they didn't say that stop reproducing. It's like... No,
they do. Is
it?
Yeah.
They just stopped? Like...
Well, alright. Are you ready to go into that? We can go into that. I kind of want to talk more about this movie. Alright, we're gonna have to have like a movie night and watch that together. That would be fun.
I gotta find it. I gotta dig it out.
We'll look into that after the show here. Alright, so I'm gonna talk about that. Just this simple little thing, like a note that I took on it. So what they're saying is, so the first breakthrough was like, alright, we made a living robot, or at least that's the plan. They announced, this is the plan. We made living robots, and they're from frog stem cells, right? That was January 2020, okay? A year later, I hear about this. Or is it a year later? It's over a year. It's almost going on 2 years. So November 2021, I catch wind of this thing, and the article saying, hey, this thing that we previously said cannot reproduce, it's reproducing. And what they said was it was reproducing in such a way that it's never been done on Earth before. Alright? So let's wrap our minds around that. What they're saying is it's only ever been observed in molecules and not in living things. Alright? Now, what I find funny is they have a term for it. And it must be because they found it happens in molecules. So, they call it kinematic or kinematic. So kind being like motion, like a short version of kinetic. So kinematic, so it's automatic. So they're saying kinematic self-replication. All right. Now they're saying it's only ever been observed in molecules, and all that means is like salt. You know, salt's this very, very strong bonded molecule, and if you put these two gases in the same, a gas and a solid in the same area, they'll join together and create salt. Because they're very, they call it an affinity. It means they're really attracted to each other. They're basically two unstable elements by themselves, but when they're around each other, they slap together because they want the stability that they create together. So they're saying they've only seen that in molecules. Now, what I saw, I don't know if it was this specific article, but there's video. I think it is this one. They had video of it doing it, and then I finally realized, like, oh, it's not as freaky as it fucking sounds. All right. So what it was, and it involves that Pac-Man. So the Pac-Man shape was one of the ideas that this supercomputer put out there. And I guess what they were saying was they gave it like a list of tasks they wanted this form to be able to do, and then they gave it limits, like, oh, well, it's a living organism, it's made out of cells, you can't just create something out of nothing, it's got to start with what we have. And the Pac-Man shape was one of the better, like they took a group of shapes that had the best potential, and then they took those and then experimented further. So they trashed a whole bunch of other ideas, and the Pac-Man shape it's basically like a U. It's not really like a freaking sphere with a mouth. It's more like a U shape, but it looks kind of like Pac-Man. And it was one of the ones that passed the first, elimination. It actually led to results. And I saw a video of it, like, in motion, and all it was like when you think of a robot, you think it's controlled, you tell it what to do and it does it. What I saw was complete out of control motion. So it was this Pac-Man shape, and it was it was accurate. It kept going in the same circle, but all it was doing was spinning, all right? So this grouping of cells, 3,000 cells, after 5 days, grew the little cilia hairs, and it started moving. And in it, because of its shape, it was just doing circles. It was spinning and spinning and spinning. It maintained the C shape, but it was just going in a circle. And what ended up happening was they kept adding more stem cells. These cleaned up, more developed cells. So there was the scraping cells, they cleaned them up and then put them in a bath of, I guess they said saline, so salt water, and they just let them develop. And once they became a little more developed, they started slapping these extra cells into the petri dish that had the moving cells, alright? So what they observed was this freaking non-stop circling motion. They were calling it gathering, but from what I could tell from the video, it just looks like it's knocking around these cells, and some of them wind up grouping together. Like they're kind of sticky. So this Pac-Man thing is spinning and spinning and spinning, and it's gathering cells, and they estimate once it gets about 50 cells together, the cells start bonding, and then they create a brand new cell. That it's not the same shape, but it's alive and it matches the same cells as the Pac-Man thing. So basically, this Pac-Man thing that's spinning in motion, it's basically slapping cells together. Like they're just dropping it in the pan there with them. So this circle thing's like spinning through these cells, and just from its motion, it starts gathering some of the cells together because it's U-shaped, so it's scooping them. And then they bond and start becoming their own cells. So what they're saying is through motion, they're self-replicating. All right?
Yeah.
I hope that made sense, because even saying it, I'm like, I don't know. I think a few people might have fallen asleep just through that explanation.
But I did have a question for you.
Sure.
How do you feel about cloning?
Oh shit! You just opened a can of worms, my friend. Okay. I'm just kidding. Have you seen Have you seen My Sister's Keeper? I'm a scientist, but I'm go to the movies first. Because like I don't see movies as like a perfect scientific explanation, but people creatively think of these situations and scenarios, and what happens is once the idea's out there, somebody can start working on it. All right, so that's what I love about movies. Like it's like all right, it seems completely impossible, but now that our minds are there, we're gonna make it possible. It happens all the fucking time. So, have you seen My Sister's Keeper? It's like this family, they have a daughter and she's perpetually sick. Like she was born with leukemia or something, and like it's their first child, their first love. They raised her to be like a young teen or like a 7-year-old, something like that, and then they find out, oh, she's sick. It's terminal, she's gonna die. So what they wound up doing was they made a clone of themselves. They made her clone. Because what they realized was the what do they call it? When you donate organs, what is that called? UNOS? I think it's called UNOS. United Network for Organ Sharing. So it's called UNOS. Alright, so UNOS, they have a list, and everybody always talks about the list, but I think they have tons of lists and all these different, like, it's lists of people who need organs, right? But there's all these parameters and, like, laws that keep them from just giving them away. They have to fit this perfect cookie-cutter setting, and then they have to compete with each other on this list, and names go up and down depending on what they do. Somebody can get sicker, and they go to the top. Like, they're going to die now, they need it now, so the very next organ that fits their needs goes to them. But if they, wind up going out and becoming an alcoholic and drinking, but they're waiting for a liver, you go off the fucking list. It's like, nope, you're done. And that shit happens a lot. You'd be surprised. But anyway, I'm going off a tangent here. So what these parents realized was, all right, if our daughter has this terminal illness, and it's the type where she may not ever become better, and we'd be restricted to UNOS, their list, we would have no way of waiting long enough for an organ to save our child. So what do? They turned to cloning. And what they wound up doing was making a perfect match sister of this girl. And it's fucked up. They start using her to take her organs to make their original daughter better. Now that's cloning in an eggshell, which kind of sounds awful, but it's really in not that direct type of situation. But they're saying we could grow organs, Oh, we can make an ear on the back of a rat. We can take a section of your liver and grow another liver. Like, that was cool. The liver reproduces itself if you give it enough time. So what they were saying was, all right, we're not going to wait for the organ donation list. We're going to make a clone and start using her like a fucking donor bag, which is fucked up, And there's more to that. When it's with those details attached to it, or that scenario.
That's fucked up. I guess I think that's where we're not able to see those things directly of how all this innovation is going to affect, how we feel about our connections to people, or our what is normal, or what is not normal, but what validates these things, how we feel, like, all of a sudden we have a clone of our relative, but they're only using them for the body parts and they're going to decay.
Yeah.
Because they're really trying to save the original.
Yeah. That's disgusting. It's fucked up.
It's a little amoral,
Yeah.
Like,
a little more than a little.
But, that's kind of what science
does all the time.
That's kind of what they do.
Yeah. Hey, now,
Hey,
let's not start bashing scientists.
Well, I don't know. We're curious.
Yeah.
But, curiosity killed the cat.
That's what they say.
But, that's pretty crazy, though.
So, this might be a concept that we can all kind of wrap our minds around more than that movie. How do you feel about cloned meat?
Cloned meat?
Yeah, like eating it, because at some point, I love that it was Cat Williams, the comedian. I always want to call him Cat Stevens, but it's Cat Williams. He brought up this article he read, and it was something like a court decides whether or not that it's safe to begin feeding cloned meat to the American public. So cloned cows, cloned chickens, cloned fish, cloned pigs. All right?
Yeah.
So we may or may not, while you're eating your burger, wherever you're at, you might be eating cloned meat. All right? Now, the idea behind that was all good intentions. It was like, we need to feed. I think they started cloning type deals in the name of human life and preservation. They were producing cloned corn, which, I think is a little easier pill to swallow for us. Is like, oh yeah, clone the corn, because it's a plant and not a living organism, it's not.
Yeah, well, so then there's almost levels to what will stomach.
Yeah, exactly. And what we can stomach now versus the past, too, is...
What about a pig, like clone a pig?
Well, I think what the argument comes up a lot is, these animals have feelings.
Oh, yeah.
But really, if we're getting down to it, plants have nervous systems. Plants react to pain. Plants react to sound and wind and being talked to. They listen to music. Like, I'm only really saying this for the vegans out there. Plants don't feel like, but I think in general we can swallow the idea of cloned corn better than we can cloned fish or pigs or cows or humans. So what they were doing was they were cloning fish and corn and I want to say wheat. Soy was a big one. Soy is a huge one. Like, soy is the lead up to Monsanto. Like, there's this whole other, food wars thing we can get into. But they're like this really hardcore chemical company, and I think they were just bought out by Bayer, and they're another one, huge.
Whoa.
But they make our pain meds, so we're like, that's literally a pill I can swallow. But like Bayer, I believe, was the creator of mustard gas back in the days when we had war, like the trench warfare.
Oh, shit.
So, like, their wartime developments led to, later on they made medicines.
Dang.
That benefit us, supposedly, quote unquote. So, when they started developing cloned foods, it was they did it in the name of feeding hungry countries. I think is how the idea started. Like, why would we develop this? Like, soy was supposed to be this super crop, and that's why they created Roundup. It's like, all right, we know the genome of this plant, and then we're going to create a chemical that works hand in hand with this crop, so that we can kill off, bugs and impeding pests. It was like pests, bugs, and weeds.
Mm-hmm.
So they created this weed killer that worked perfectly with soy. And so they're like, we got the perfect crop, and then we're going to take over the industry because we're the only ones that will be able to protect the crop with our chemical Roundup.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was all this blowout after that, but all these crops were basically in the idea and following of somebody saying, we need to feed the hungry. We need to feed the poor.
Mm.
And what's kind of fucked up is people are still out there dying. Again, capitalism. We found out like one of our main exports, and I think it's either to Japan or China or both, is soy.
Right.
That's like our cash crop, and it starts with Monsanto and Roundup.
Damn.
So I don't know. So that's what I'm getting at. Is you asked me how I feel about clones. I thought about my sister's keeper first, but really, this is something we should all be thinking about: is where is our food coming from?
Mm-hmm.
And like Cat Williams pointed out, they're feeding the clone meat to us. Now, I don't know if it was experimental or, kind of disproportionate, like, we got all the regular beef, and then I think the way they carried it out was in specific cities, and which I don't want to get all conspiracy theory here, but I bet they started in underdeveloped communities where they can get away with that shit.
Uh-huh.
Maybe more like testing it on us.
Well, what about what was it? Was it chickens? No, it wasn't chickens.
What?
It was a hybrid. There's a popular animal right now that we eat a lot, and it's a hybrid. It's not really like indigenous, or it's not really a animal that.
It's not natural. It's an HMO.
Yeah. What is that animal? What am I thinking of?
I don't know. It's any animal that's ever been genetically modified. It becomes an HMO.
So, I mean, we're kind of already in that. I think we're already kind of, part of the science project.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What they say, you are what you eat. But I don't know what cloned meat is.
Well, check this out. Doesn't even have to be the meat. Like, have you ever seen a milk product? Like just milk in general that says no HGB in it?
Mm-hmm.
Human growth hormone, HGH, or I think it usually says HGHBRST or something like that. Like it's a human growth hormone. Now, we give that to chickens to make them, grow larger breasts so that we have bigger pieces of chunks of meat in our chicken bowl and bigger thighs, and they look all crazy.
Yeah, roids.
Yeah, roids, basically roids. They're growth hormones, and steroids is basically what that is. So anyway, they say, and I believe it's kind of leading to humans growing up and developing earlier.
Yeah, I can see that.
So younger girls are getting their periods earlier, and men are getting, we're reaching our sexual maturity earlier. That's why, like they're saying, it's kind of changed where the young ladies with larger breasts and bigger thighs, as they're growing up, and they're much younger. They're growing these different bodies, and they say, like I'm trying to think of examples for males, so I'm not just pointing out women, but like
I think height. Like
height. Well,
I'm
wondering, like the male hormone, testosterone. I feel like it would make boys hairier. I think you see a lot more little mustaches growing on young boys. We're getting taller and maybe more muscular, and the voices are cracking earlier. Puberty is the word I was looking for. Is like it's hitting earlier.
Yeah.
And it's because of the foods we're eating, like these foods that, the point was, hey, let's develop a meatier chicken, so let's give it hormones. Let's develop a cow that's got so much more meat on it or produces way more milk. And then that shit is still in the stuff we eat. So now we're consuming it too, and we're growing up. You give your children milk or formula or whatever, like we're giving them these hormones. So in a way, we're kind of doing it to ourselves as well. Now, where does that fall into clones? I don't know, but I'm saying.
Well, I think it's like what you're feeding. Maybe what we're feeding, not so much the clones, but.
Well, this is
what we're feeding this Xenobot or this I guess kind of saying the new robot as this person or this living being, where it's like I don't know, like what are why are you? What is your purpose? Why are you here?
Yeah.
But then it's like what we've been saying, like we are what we eat. So like, what are we feeding?
Yeah.
This robot now,
Well, that's why this whole organic push is going on. Like
because we're all creating these steroid.
Yeah, and there's side effects,
Yeah.
I think when you start messing with hormones, cancer becomes a lot more prevalent. Like ladies with breast cancer and ovarian cancer, their chances increase when they're taking birth control pills, because those are heavy in hormones, and so they're told, oh, don't take this if you already have breast cancer or ovarian cancer, because it's going to make it worse. So it's the same thing. Like that's why there's such a huge rush. Like, oh, I don't want growth hormones in my milk. I want, it was just organic chicken, and then now they're adding, oh, I want them to be happy chickens, so let's make them free-roam chickens. It's.
Yeah.
I understand the race, but I'm kind of one of those guys that's just like, just throw my fucking, throw the chicken in the bucket, Like, I'm going to eat this meat. Like,
well, again, it's that how far you're willing to go, but man, at the end of the day, we still want that chicken.
Yeah. Well, what's I think we continuously point out that I'm a big hypocrite. I want to say it's a human kind of trait to be hypocritical. But I'll point out my own hypocrisy here. When I listen to somebody go off about what they're eating and all that, I'm kind of like, just shut up, you idiot. Like, I'm so sick of this talk. But it's based in science. It's based in reality. Like, we're feeding all these crazy chemicals to our kids and ourselves. So, yeah. I don't know about all of them. So I do believe some people are just crazy. You know, they overdo it. They learn something and then they go out and overdo it. But, I should be praising some of these people for doing the right thing. They're going out and they're probably even spending more money, or in some cases maybe not, but in my mind they're spending more money and more time and energy thinking about their foods, and maybe they'll be the healthier for it. Maybe they will. I tend to see vegans as unhealthy people. Like, they always look kind of sickly to me and small and weak, like they need some more iron or something. Like, they look kind of sickly, I just want to feed them a hamburger, or some meat, get some meat in there. But, to each their own. But, where I come down is just man, I don't want to do all that. I want meat on my plate, and I swear I try to get it in every meal. I don't just go I'm just going to eat grains right now in this meal. It's no, all right, we're having grains, we're having, there's pasta, there's greens, there's vegetables on my plate, but where's the meat? I want meat. So, what do you think about that?
I mean, I like meat too.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you do.
Maybe where the meat comes from is a question that we don't really consider.
Yeah. Because
meat is there, and you just, blow that shit up.
Yeah.
And it's, it's a part of, it's always, are we too late to the game to where it's we should have been questioning our food a long time ago, which maybe we have, maybe we were. I think, sometimes we don't always read the ingredients. We just, who cares? We just want to eat it. And, overlook how it's affecting us, slowing us down, or, changing how we look. I don't know. I mean, you said, I wouldn't say that about a vegan. I mean, but,
yeah.
But, I guess, you have the right to feel the way you feel.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever say, I'm never eating meat again. Feels like I'm invested in the meat. Pause, Yeah. I mean, I did actually consider not going vegan, but just there's a point in my life where I was more food conscious, and maybe when I was planting more or had a garden where I was felt like I was contributing to the food cycle, but there's this story I always tell of my mom, when she was living with her grandma. They had one day her grandpa brought her a pig,
mm-hmm.
and it was kind of like the pet.
Yeah.
You know, my mom never saw it as a hog. You know, it was like her friend.
Yeah.
And so, like, she got really close with the pig. You know, like, grew up with the pig. You know, the pig became huge, and you know, for whatever reason, I think my mom either like did something over the summer, or like she left home and was no longer there at my grandma's house, or this is my great grandma's house.
Mm-hmm.
Something happened to the pig. I don't know. I don't know if it naturally died or if it was ill, but you know, the males of the family were like, we're cutting up this pig. Yeah. You know, we're cooking it up tonight. We're you know, and traditionally, you know, like you share, you know, like in hunting, like you share. You know, It's not just yours. You share with your community, your family, whoever.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing with this pig, you know, because there's so much meat.
Yeah.
You know, it was like my great grandma. But I say traditional, but I think it's just in good spirit where you have abundance of something and you want to, like, you know, share with everybody you're close with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I say traditional, but I think it's just in good spirit, you know, you want to share with everybody. And so my mom comes home, suddenly comes home, doesn't know what's going on, and everybody's just chopping the pig, the pig, you know.
Yeah.
And my mom doesn't know what's going on.
God.
She just walks into it and it's like, where's all this meat? I mean, where's all this pork, you know? Like, where's all this coming from?
Yeah, God.
And I remember, you know, I left out a lot of, like, to make it not so, like, relatable, or I left out a lot of details, but my mom was devastated. Like, this was her friend, like, when the pig was little, and became an adult pig, and they were friends, and
God.
so they said this is Blondie. That's the name of the pig.
No.
And so she just like, I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty sure she was, I could say, traumatized would be a good word to use, but you know, she didn't eat Blondie that day. Like, that was her pet. But in the other sense, it was food.
Yeah.
And it's kind of natural what happens. Like, this is food we can eat. Like, it's not. Besides the fact that, you had a relationship with it, or you had good moments with it, or good memories with it. It's a part of the circle of life. But now we're throwing in a robot, or throwing in these things that aren't really, at one point, kind of seem not a real thing, almost make believe, and now clone meat. I'm like, what the hell? Like, that sounds like some crazy ghost shit. Yeah. But it's a possibility now with everything that we've seen and kind of witnessed, and you know, might be even partaking in and unaware of. So, I mean, I share that story because, like, from the different angles, it was like all these different things, but it was like devastating because, I don't know, like, there's this human connection that we have, and with all this stuff that we're doing, how is that going to affect our human side? You know, it's like science almost leaves that out of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. No, you brought up a really good side. So I just went like pro meat really hard right now, and I'm gonna do another hypocritical thing here. I watched this movie called Food Inc. And that's where I first learned about Monsanto and soy, but I also saw, like, I think somebody snuck into a slaughterhouse, and they filmed the slaughtering of pigs. I'm going to try to save some of the graphicness, but I'm gonna oversimplify what I saw. It was this paddock, like this big pen. All these pigs were walked into there, and what it was this giant piston. And they walked in, they activated it, and this piston just pushes out and crushed them all on top of themselves. And it basically killed all of them. Boom. Instantly. This giant group of them, this life, suddenly dead. And
Damn.
I was like, holy shit, I didn't know they'd do it that way. It seemed, I'm going to say it, inhumane. It just seemed like maybe it wasn't inhumane because it was so quick. Like, it just happened, like, in a matter, let's say, a second, maybe 2 seconds, just, ooh.
Wow.
But I'll tell you, I stopped eating bacon for a while. I stopped eating pork. It was like, holy fuck, I'm part of that. You know, like what you just mentioned was the real reality of not just going in a store and picking up a plastic plate with meat on it wrapped in plastic.
Yeah.
That was seeing a slaughter of an animal going from that to your plate. And that changes you. It kind of affects your perspective. And I hear a lot of hunters talk about how important it is for people to go hunting and follow the process from living, beautiful, majestic animal on the hill to dead, to field prep, to butchering, to eating it. And that way there's a closer understanding to, like, all right, first of all, you're taking care of yourself, but at the same time, you're taking control and responsibility for this loss of life. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, all right, you saw it, you did it, and, you know, there's usually so much meat, like with the deer, they last throughout the year, or maybe if you're a bit hardcore meat eater, you know, it doesn't last that long, or maybe you're giving it away, like you said. But, well, I've heard a lot of hunters go, well, you know, this is a better way to do it. You become less reliant on this big meat cycle. And at the same time, you grow a deeper understanding and respect for the loss of life that's going on. Now, like I said, after watching that Food Inc. shit and watching that, it messed me up. And there was a long, I don't want to say long, it was probably like a month or two where I would stare at those packages of bacon and just go, oh, those poor pigs, like, oh my God, like, oh, like I was traumatized. It fucked me up. I recommend people go watch it so you learn a little more about it. But, it like I said, it's about taking responsibility, you know, and like, after a while I wound up eating it again because it's fucking bacon, but like, it was like, I kind of justified it in my head to myself, made the excuse, and what I was like is like every bit of meat that's in that store, if it doesn't get eaten, it goes to waste. So, I mean, the animal's already been killed, and then by not eating it, it's like, all right, this will go to waste. So that's where my head is at. But then, like we've talked previously on our dumpster diving episode,
I was just not gonna mention that.
And maybe another one. But the lady's like, hey, like they were pushing for more vegans, I think is what she was doing. And she was just like, hey, you're no longer by taking the meat out of the equation, you're basically no longer contributing to greenhouse gases. And if we got more and more people to become aware of this, we could start reversing global warming and all this horrible, like, basically death camps of slaughterhouses going on around the world and causing all this, like, pain for these animals. And it's going on all the time, right? This torture and murder, right? At all these slaughterhouses. It's a slaughterhouse.
Well, so that's, I think that's where it's kind of, like, how far is too far, because, we're talking about, of course we're going to eat this food, right? Mm-hmm. Or at least we think we are, or say we are. But, it almost seems the industrialness of it to where it's almost like too easy, too quick. Like we didn't have to work to get this meat. We just had to go to the store and get it.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. It dehumanizes the animal, or I don't know what the animal version of dehumanizing is. It's I guess just dehumanizing. Like, we care for other humans. It's like, oh, they're human. I understand. It's the equivalent of that for animals. It's like, I care for these animals. It's like your mom's caring for Blondie. It was like that. She grew up with that animal. She cared for it. And then suddenly it went the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. There's talk of, like, smaller industry. Like a small farm, the free-range farms, they're small.
Yeah.
And then have you seen, like, some of the conditions in, like, a chicken coop on a big industry type place? It's crazy. It's disgusting.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like, wow, we're part of that. And when I was saying, like, when I was justifying it and going, okay, everything in the store is dead. It's gonna go to waste if you don't eat it. Like, that gets me through the day. It's like, all right, I'm eating meat, and I require meat in every meal. I'm doing that, but like, I'm also part of the problem. Like, and I even said, like, all right, if I stop eating meat, it's not gonna stop the desire, the want, like the what do they call it in the drug industry? It's like demand and
supply and demand.
Yeah, supply and demand. So there's this demand for meat in America, and not just here, everywhere. It's pretty hardcore in South America right now too. But everywhere there's this demand for meat. And as long as that demand is there, the industry will exist and it will go on. And it's going to keep getting bigger because it's not like we're shrinking in population. So there has to be like a... Huh?
I was going to say, like, do you see meat, like, kind of like economically, like, in certain, like, like, say bologna is a lower meat versus, like, prime rib or...
Oh, yeah.
Like how they're sort of like that. Well, how would you describe that? Like,
I think there's... No, like I don't really think... Well, there's definitely a difference. Like, my sister just sent me this picture of, like, this... it was, like, Japanese meat.
Kobe.
Yeah, no. Well, that's kind of the same idea, but what theirs was called was kirigoi or something like that.
Oh.
Maybe that was the Japanese version of Kobe, but like it was a meat that had much more marbling, and therefore is much more expensive because like when you got good marbling in a steak, it's fat that's making the marbling.
Yeah.
When you slow cook a steak just right, the fats kind of start disintegrating and they release that flavor into the meat, and it becomes kind of buttery and delicious.
Yes.
So there was this huge demand for that. You're gonna pay probably $25 a pound or something like something crazy. She saw it, and I was like, I'd definitely want to try it because that's what I look for in my meats, like ribeyes and whatnot. I usually get ribeyes because they're something called diez mio in Spanish. I don't know what it is actually, but it's a marbled meat, like a higher fat content, and I'm sure like. All right, so you asked one question, but I'm thinking another way as well. You asked, do I think about meat economically, and is one cheaper, better or worse?
You associate meat with like economic,
like class.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the word.
All right, well. For me, it's more like what I can afford, and which does put me in a category. But I'm like, it's what I can afford and what I prefer. So like when I have a ribeye, that's like a treat. I don't eat ribeyes every day. I mean, fuck, if I could, I probably would. But what I'm saying is like, at least once a month, I want to throw some steaks on the grill and tear up some ribeyes. But like tonight, if the bologna hadn't gone bad in the fridge, the last piece, I would have tore that fucker up right now because I wanted a bologna sandwich. So I'll put it this way: I don't discriminate. I like all forms of meat. All right. Damn it! Even that makes me a hypocrite because I don't want to eat a dog. I'd probably try it, but I'm saying I've grown up with dogs and I'm a dog person. But I would definitely try it if I was in a country where that's more, on par with okay. Like I'd eat a horse, even though I think a horse is one of the most majestic animals out there. But yeah, so. Again, I'm being hypocritical, but I really think of it as a situational thing, and it's really a human trait to be good on one thing and bad on another.
Well, it's like, why is a dog less desirable than a pig?
Well, bacon, bro. Just bacon. You say bacon.
There might be some new bacon on the dog that you've never had before.
Let's put it this way. If you had just bacon off of a pig, it wouldn't be as good as a processed bacon. It would still be bacon, but it wouldn't have, unless you cook it right over some mesquite or something, but most bacons that are on the market, let's say processed bacon, they're infused with like a flavoring of smoke. So they say char grilled this or that, hardwood, applewood bacon. They're infusing it when they're cooking it or processing it to have wood flavor. Now if you slaughtered a pig and then cooked it over a hardwood or whatever, some applewood, mesquite, it'll have that flavor, and it'll probably be as good. I'd say better because it's natural or whatever. But yeah, it's. I think what a lot of people crave when they think bacon, there's texture of the fat from bacon from pigs. But I think a lot of people when they smell bacon, they're not really thinking, oh, pig. They're thinking mesquite or applewood or whatever the hell it's cooked with. It's that smoky flavoring that goes into the bacon. And then there's the fat and the juiciness of bacon, but it's that smoky flavoring, like it's an additive. I think so. That's what I believe. Like I've had meats with that are just cooked, and then I've had meats that are smoky, and there's a difference. I mean, when I cook my ribeyes, I try to cook them on some mesquite because this is where I grew up,
Yeah.
Now cows aren't originally from where I grew up, but I appreciate them now.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about just this last, we just hit 2 hours. So I'm not trying to go much deeper, but I'm going to go back to me saying we're all animals. Like, a lot of people have theories, and there's plenty of science to back up why you want to avoid fats and all that. Certain amounts of red meat, all that. And the way I see it, I'm a scientist, I believe in evolution. Our teeth, we're omnivores. We have grinding teeth and we have ripping teeth. The ripping teeth are not for ripping veggies, they're for ripping meat. Our entire genome has developed with the inclusion of meat. That was part of the development, and that's why our teeth are the way they are. So, like a vegetarian animal, an herbivore, has these flat teeth. They rip branches just fine. Well, I guess they got the ripper fronts too. I mean, we have canines, like dogs, it's for ripping meat, tearing into meat. It's developed that way. We've developed that way. This whole concept of avoiding meat is kind of new. Yeah, herbivores have been out there, but I'm saying a human not eating meat is ridiculous. We're omnivores.
Well, it's almost like surviving without meat,
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the point that the lady was making on the dumpster diving was like, hey, we don't need it. And we have the ability to make the choice, and we have ways of replacing those nutrients. Was her argument.
Yeah.
All right, but mine is like some of our basis operations in our body, like on a fucking cellular level, require fat and salt. All right, so it's like I think it's insane to try and rewire your bodies to meet this, what I think is a damn near impossible goal. But that's what I think. I'm not a vegan. I'm very much an omnivore. I love vegetables, but I prefer having meat with every meal. Like, I feel like it's an incomplete meal if there isn't some sort of meat in there. Now, that's just me. If you guys are cringing out there, any vegans that might be listening, you already turned off or tuned out, it's just me.
You might have lost the vegan audience.
Yeah, I think I lost the community, the vegan community back there.
Come back.
Look, I'm not anti-vegan. A vast majority of the vegans I met are irritating as fuck, and they don't look healthy to me. But, there are some sweet people. I think there's, like, people who live their lifestyle and then don't force it on other people. I can respect that. Like, keep your mind and ideas out of my life. Let me live my life my way. Don't force it on me. And that's kind of what I run into a lot with vegans. They're usually forcing their agenda on me. And that's where I turn off and go, no, you fucking vegan, get away from me. But it's not about hatred. It's just I don't like somebody forcing their agenda on me, and that's what I run into a lot with vegans. But hypocrite again. The dumpster diving lady, she made good points. I just don't think me stopping eating is going to stop everybody.
No.
And I think it just comes down to making up your mind how you want to live.
Yeah, well, it's are you going to partake or not,
Yeah. And I'll put this out there, and this is probably going to piss off some more people. I don't like when people make their kids vegan. Like, I feel like that's making I feel like living the vegan thing affects you the rest of your life. And I think starting a child off that way is kind of fucked up. Like say, hey child, this is my lifestyle. You live my, like, as parents, we our kids and parents, we share our lifestyles, and you grow up learning from your parents. This is what you eat. This is what you don't. But like I said, our bodies are built this way to thrive off of fats and oils, and like equally or maybe disproportionately with veggies and grains and whatever. But like, I think if a kid, when they get old enough to make up their own minds, cool, go vegan if you want, you know, go wild, go for it. But like, I just feel like you're malnourishing a child when you do that. And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are going to be like, fuck this guy. Again, you're forcing your agenda on me, you know. Okay, maybe. But I've seen a lot of kids that just, they can't make up their own mind, they can't defend themselves, and they're freaking looking sickly. I don't like that. But you know, again, if I don't want somebody telling me what to do, I can't tell them what to do. But that is my judgment on that. It's like, I don't think they should do that to kids.
I mean, I didn't ever thought of that. I mean, I always thought it was like, I mean, these kids got a lot of options now. It seems like the list keeps growing of what they could, you know, dabble with or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. Like, do you want to be vegan or not? Like, I thought it was the kids' I thought it was the individual's decision to kind of make that definitive statement versus
an adult decision about the rest of your life, I think.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is kind of related to the SpongeBob thing where, you know, we're kind of like calculating in our head of what we should be doing with or how much time is enough time.
What's right and what's wrong?
And I mean, you can tell a kid like, hey, go easy on the meats and let's just eat some greens, but like, to be like, you never, I mean, first thing that came to my mind was like, man, can you remember like the first time smelling bacon, you know, that early in the morning, it's grilling, it's just sizzling. You know, it's just the aroma, it's just, it's got that bacon stank, you know, just in the kitchen. I wouldn't want to deprive anybody of that. So, I don't know. I mean, but you're not the parent to that kid, so.
Again, that's the thing about children too. They want to do what mom and dad are doing. So like, even if you're like, you're gonna eat everything until you're old enough to make that decision, I don't think they could even get them to do that. They'd be like, what's mom eating? I want to eat that too. What's dad eating? I want to eat it too.
Well, I mean, that's what you see. But I guess maybe the term vegan, there's a lot of, well, like any term, there's generalizations and stereotypes and, you know, bad experiences that kind of change your judgment on how you see it, you know, so. But I mean, there's there's no plants and all we have is meat, you know. I mean, it's just you gotta eat what you gotta eat.
I was thinking about it. I don't know if it was the dumpster diving article, but I feel like her point that she made at some point, I think, or maybe I read it somewhere else, they said it's something like, once the Impossible Burger came out, or, once they successfully made a delicious plant product that, looked, smelled, tasted like a burger, or, whatever piece of meat we're talking here, I think they said something like, once that was made, the fight to keep meat should have ended there. Like, once we have the alternative and it's sustainable, we should fight immediately to take that as an alternative to doing all the destruction and the global warming that we're causing with our meat industry. And my only concern with going with these alternative products is a lot of times they contain soy. And I truly feel like the entire soy industry is part of what's poisoning us. And it was great. Like, it goes all the way back to that Monsanto thing, but at the same time, it's like, man, it's hard. Like, if you really start reading labels, soy is in damn near everything now. And I think it's because we have so much of it. It's like, oh, we have it, and it serves this purpose. Throw it in there. Let's use it. Use what we have. It's a crop we have. It's sustainable. Let's do it. And, like, if you read into any of these alternatives, a lot of times they use a lot of soy. I think it's like a texture thing.
Yeah. I was going to say, there are parts in the wiring in my mom's new car, or her car, that are made of soy.
No shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean,
it's a super crop, apparently.
It's not just for consuming, it's part of the buildings. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think we should do a soy episode, cause
yeah, I'm thinking that now. We've completely gone off the rails and we're talking food now. I mean, it still kind of pertains to what we're creating. Like, science is leading our needs. Like, the demand is being supplied by science. And again, we're talking alternatives to meat and clone meat. That all goes back on science and stem cells and kind of what they're doing here. This is all possible because of breakthroughs that were done in cloning and genetic research. So it's all tied in together. And now that we've gone this deep down the rabbit hole, I think having a food episode later on, either a food or a soy, I would love to do a soy and do a little more research so I'm not just yelling out Monsanto all the time.
Yeah, no, we should find an article.
Yeah. I'm digging this article thing. It kind of keeps us on track. Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's the juxtaposition.
Nice.
Where you can kind of reference something and dance around it.
Yeah. Pretty good.
But, yeah, I mean, we're talking about meat, but we're really talking about robots.
Xenobots, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Alright. Do you have a closing statement or anything like that to bring it home? Something to refocus us and to, like, maybe how you feel now versus how you came into this conversation? Like, how do you feel about it? Has it changed at all?
Maybe I'm just reminded of our own imprint on these processes that are going on in the world, and We kind of have the right and the ability to say how we feel and how to act the way we act. And this article kind of brings up this, open-ended question of kind of, hey, we're tapping into robots now, and
and it's alive. It's a living.
Yeah, and we might be able to do a lot of new things, but these things are gonna have. They might rub us the wrong way. There might be some things you might not agree with, or there might be some things that that go against what you believe in or what you stand for. So I guess it's like making sound decisions, but also kind of having a better understanding of yourself. Because, like that. Like Bob said that he don't want to eat no dog meat, but maybe you will.
I would try it. If I came across...
You might already have, so...
Yeah. You said
I know. Well, it's like when they say, like, it tastes like chicken, I think I think a lot of times it's scary, but we don't really know what we're eating. We don't really know all sometimes. And I think that's scary because, there was a time, maybe not when we were alive, but, our ancestors, our elders were, they had a better relationship to their food than maybe we have now.
Yeah.
But maybe it's because everything is pretty much commercialized business, There's a profit that goes to somebody, and we kind of get the consequence of it, where, we're eating the shit they feed us.
Yeah. Or what you can afford.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, I actually have... This is restaurant in Vegas where they got all that stuff you're talking about, like on display too, as part of the restaurant. Like these meats just marinating and I don't know if it's brine or what it is, but it's helping the flavors. Yeah, so it's expensive too. So that's why I was asking about like the classifications of meats, because it seems like humans have done that with meat, so we're kind of like, I don't know. Maybe we're trying to eat some robot meat,
Shit. Well, we might be using the robots in the future to cure whatever elements the cow has, and then in eating that meat, we eat what's in it, which will be these things. Now, crap, you just reminded me. Or do you have more to say? Because I'm going to go.
Nah, I'm done.
You just reminded me. I told you that they can die, and there is limits. You're like, oh, they're just going to keep replicating? Remember? And I was like, no.
Oh, yeah.
Part of that. Okay, so... I'm going to touch on that before I close it out here. What was allowing them to replicate was the adding of those cells. The new cells, they were adding new, more clean stem cells. When they stopped doing that, they said these things would die within about a week. So again, playing God, they're creating something and then letting it die if they want. I'm sure they're testing to see how far they can let it go, but what they basically said in these articles was that in a surplus environment where there's plenty of nutrients and the proper temperature and whatnot, and they were saying specifically temperatures that are more inclined with the frogs' necessities for the environment, that these things would last longer and longer. But Okay, there's a but here. But what they were saying was that the thoughts and hopes for that is that it makes it like what they liked about this versus robots and whatnot. The juxtaposition, I use the word now, between a metal robot and a living robot, like they're, we put them side by side and compare them. The metal robots and all that, a lot of these metals and the polymers and all these stuff, they leave a trace and they're poisonous. Some of them are poisonous to the environment, and they don't just disappear. They're here now. We have to process the metals and the polymers and the plastics to create a metal robot, or the ideal robot that we see. And then this alternative living robot is biodegradable, is kind of how they put it. They're like, this, if it stops receiving the nutrients that they're providing it passes away, it dies. And then what they're saying is if it's in our bodies, then it's basically like consuming, it's like having skin cells in our body. And then our body will just naturally remove them as they pass away. So what they were saying is it was a healthy, clean alternative, like even if we use it in the environment, to a robot or something that will leave behind this horrible, poisonous, sometimes contaminating footprint. Now, I think we also didn't touch up the positive side. Like we kind of just went off the deep end into, all these Terminator style kind of Terminator-esque scenarios.
Yeah, Pandora's box.
Yeah, well, we just kind of said, they're putting the good stuff first, and then they're not really, going into detail on the negative side. Well, I don't think we even touched on the good stuff. They were saying, using the different shapes and the different ways they were organizing the cells to complete different tasks, they were saying ideally what they would use it for is, one idea they put out was collection of microplastics in the ocean. So they were thinking we'd put these things in the ocean and they would seek out plastics and collect them, probably consume them, basically decontaminate the ocean. Yeah. Then they were also saying that they could also maybe eventually get it to collect hazardous chemicals. So like maybe breaking down radioactive material, breaking down like an oil spill that's in the ocean. That's always this huge environmental disaster. They're saying, this could be something we'd release on something like that, and it would clean up the oil. Now, generally, my concern still comes up and goes on the term unintended consequences. There's, we release this thing in the ocean, and just like Jurassic Park, if we go, they'll die in a week, but hey, it's got frog DNA, maybe they'll become hermaphroditic or asexual, and they won't die, and then what's to keep them from stopping at just the bad stuff? That's the concern. And then they were saying there was like a donut-shaped microorganism that they made, and they were saying, hey, that, because of how small they are, they could be put in the body, and that hole could be used to deliver a special kind of medicine that maybe we can't get into any other way. It could be sent to a specific spot in your body and deliver medication like cancer treatments or, Alzheimer's, someplace in the brain. So there was a lot of medicine taught. There was a lot of decontamination, and they were talking reversal of greenhouse gases. There was all these positives they were saying, and, you can't take the bad without the good, and at the same time, there's always going to be that concern in the back of our minds about, this whole scary playing God project getting out of hand. And what's crazy, about this article is they involved DARPA, they involved the National Science Foundation, they involved playing God, stem cells, they involved AI, supercomputers, robots. and previously impossible self-replication. Previously non-existent, what do they call it? Kinematic self-replication. They only saw it in molecules before and in no living things, and then somehow they did it. And it was spontaneous too. It wasn't what they were shooting for, but it wound up doing it. Again, unintended results. So if I'm going to close this thing now, I just want to say, guys, people, the point of this podcast, and I think anytime we have conversations, is to inform us, is to get us thinking, and I really hope that's what you people, anybody who's listening, got out of this. It's not, me versus vegans or anything like that. I don't hate people. It's just some things bother me that maybe doesn't bother the next person. But the point of this is I want to spread the word. I want to educate, and I also want to get people thinking. And I think it's really important for us to realize what we're getting, what we're taking away in the name of progress. And again, science, to me, is a great and fantastic thing within boundaries. And some people might even be out there saying, we can't advance without taking risk. Maybe, maybe not. All right? So I'm just saying, think about yourself. Think about your contradictions. Think about what you don't know, and you'll be the better for it. You'll be more informed. That's kind of the whole point of this, is to think about what you think. Think about yourself. Think about what you're eating. Think about the world around you and, the environment that our next generation is going to grow up in. And I think a common message that we keep coming across is there's a cycle of abuse and waste that really isn't getting addressed fast enough. We're all in danger, and we're all in it. We're all on the same planet, and we all have a limited time here. And the only thing that keeps us going is the next generation. It's what keeps us on this planet. And if we're not careful, we could lose it. This beautiful Earth that we have. This kind of one in a million chance planet that supported life. So that's the whole point of this thing, is I want us to start thinking about that. Think about how you feel about that. Right? Sky? Yeah? All right?
I think I do think about it, but it's like, really do your research. And sometimes the research is not in the research books. They're not in the books. You gotta actually go out and talk to people, or, hear people out. But man, I'd like to hear more about this later.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a new,
I'm sure there's more to come.
New innovation and where they're going with this. But, yeah, they're here. They're coming.
Xenobots. Living robots. Self-replicating, supposedly. It's a new world. All right? So everybody, thank you for listening. I'm glad you guys tuned in. If you're still here to the end, thank you very much. Please, hit the like button, hit us up, give us feedback, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll hit the notifications bell so that every time we release something, you get a notification telling you when we release the next video. And as always, thank you for listening.
Thanks. Peace.
Peace.